It might be weird, but I'm really glad to see it, I should say. So as Dr. Vogel mentioned, my name is Mary Elizabeth Mach, and I am the water purpose leader for water, wastewater work, basically for Garver for the state of Oklahoma. I'm really excited to be here today and glad to hear about the various flash talks that we had. I think it's a great idea, so thank you, Jason. So a little bit about Garver. The idea here is to tell you a little bit about Garver, and then we'll follow up with a couple presentations. Some of our previous speakers have spoken a little bit about them already, so we'll maybe just recap what's been said so far. But a little bit brief history about Garver I'd like to mention is we are a civil engineering firm. We started off as basically structural survey, and you can see that was almost 100 years ago. We see 1919 was when our first contract was ever signed. And since that time, we've had some pretty flat growth, but over in 2006 is really when we started to take off. I'd like to also mention that's when they hired me, so it probably has nothing to do with it. But nevertheless, we've had a lot of growth from 2006 to current, and you can see that also in the number of employees that we hire. We show 500 plus employees about right now. However, we're closer actually to 600 employees, and this is our various regions in which we're in. You see we're in 11 states. You can't see it quite as well on the screen as you can on mine, but we're in 26 different offices, and again, 500 plus employees. One of the things that we really like to emphasize is we're not just clients, or we're not just providing engineering services to our clients. We're also partners, and we are stewards of the communities in which we serve because we live there as well. And so that goes into play when we think about, the city of Norman. Our Oklahoma office has a Norman office as well as a Tulsa office. And we do a lot of partnerships, and OU is part of that community. So we hire, part of that 500 plus employees includes quite a bit of interns, and at any given day and time we have 2 to 3 interns in our Norman office that are OU students. I'm going to skip over this, but just suffice it to say we're moving up in the world. We're out around 148 on the engineering news record, which is basically a metric by which many engineering firms judge themselves, not just across the region, but across the industry wide. And in the region, however, we're at number 23, which includes Texas, which is a huge region with a lot of different engineering firms there. So the last couple, this is also the service areas, aviation, construction facilities, but of course the most important one that we're here to talk about today is the water services that Garver offers. We do a lot of water, wastewater, and that's what I'm specifically passionate about, is how that we can combine that water and wastewater projects in a way that is meaningful and helps sustain the communities in which we work. One that Mr. Kaminsky just spoke on was the Lake Thunderbird Water Reuse Project. And Garver was the design engineer that also facilitated the project throughout construction. And part of the, that was the water reclamation facility. When we did the upgrade from 12 MGD to 17 MGD, we put specific items in place, specific treatment trains in place that would be easily implementable for reuse. And that's a really important aspect when we're looking at sustaining the water supply, not just for Norman, but also the region. So the Lake Thunderbird Water Reuse Project was originally started by the COMCD, the authority that governs or that oversees the Lake Thunderbird. And throughout that project, we have partnered with Dr. Bob Nairn and some of his students, looked at the soil and how the constituents that might be common in wastewater and how they could be removed, or the efficacy of the soils to break them down into less innocuous compounds. Also, Dr. Kyle Murray, he worked with his students to develop a baseline for the ambient conditions for the lake so that we could determine what treatment train is necessary to improve the water quality. But you have to first know what the water quality of that ambient or of that water source is. So bringing innovative as well as common sense approaches to not just do a supply, because as Kaminsky said, we have the technology in place, but how can we do it that is more affordable as well as effective as possible? The other one that I'd like to note is the City of Norman also developed an arsenic removal demonstration project, and I was fortunate enough to serve as the project engineer, as I also used it as my research component for my master's work when I was here at OU. So that's another example of where Garver tries to develop projects working with a client that is meaningful and useful and relevant to diversify the water supply, while also utilizing student-based research so that they could further their careers when it comes to research and involving the community from the university perspective. So if you have any other questions we have many other projects where we'd like to do these types of partnerships with OU in the city, I'd be glad to talk about them. So thank you.